Welcome to the Unit 6 U.S. History Modified Unit Test. Today I'm going to be reading the unit test questions to you along with the answer options for you. We are going to start off with the Unit 6 reminders for during the test. Make sure that you do read through the questions, answer those that you know right away. Copy what you're answering on paper, which will save your work if you lose power or internet. It also records what you put on your first attempt of the test, so that if you do take it a second time to improve your grade, which you can, you know what not to answer a second time. Click Save as you go. Copy and paste essay responses that you have prepared ahead of time and review notes for questions that are unfamiliar to you. Use your textbook for questions that aren't addressed in the notes and read over the test once more before submitting. Click Submit once you are completely done. So as you go, you want to make sure you save your answers, and then at the end click Submit for grading so you don't have a test error. Do not exit the test before you are done. You can't get back in. It will use your second attempt if you do and can create a test submission error. So make sure that when you're sitting down to take the test, you're ready to spend the full amount of time. Let's start with question number 1. Which problem was most responsible for President Carter losing the 1980 election to Ronald Reagan? Was it the war in Iraq, hostages in Iran, or natural disasters? Number 2, which nickname was given to Ronald Reagan during his campaign identified one of his skills? Was it the negotiator, the smooth talker, or the great communicator? Number 3, which was not an issue of importance to the neoconservatives or new conservatives who supported Reagan? Lower taxes, little government regulation, or health care for all? Remember, they're actually asking for which one was not an issue of importance. Number 4, supply-side economics is an economic strategy that encourages growth in production of goods and services to create more jobs, which would result in more tax money for the government to use to operate. What is one reason some people were against supply-side economics? Was it because the program called for more government spending, that the program's supply-side economics addressed the supply of goods but not the demand for them? Or was it because part of the program called for large tax cuts for the wealthy? Number 5, in which area did government deregulation benefit both business and consumers? Was it the automobile industry, the airline industry, or the gas and oil industry? Number 6, how did cutting the budgets of some federal agencies help President Reagan achieve his goals? Those agencies could not carry out their mission of enforcing regulations. It helped him balance the federal budget, or it allowed him to spend more money on the military. Number 7, who was the first woman to become a Supreme Court Justice? Ruth Bader Ginsburg, Shirley Chisholm, or Sandra Day O'Connor? Number 8, who did not play a part in the fall of the Soviet Union? Mikhail Gorbachev, Alexander Solzhenitsyn, or Nikita Khrushchev? Number 9, which foreign leader supported Ronald Reagan's plan to hold firm against communism? Was it Britain's Margaret Thatcher, Nicaragua's Manuel Noriega, or Russia's Mikhail Gorbachev? Number 10, which policies allowed the Soviet Union access to the outside world and different political and economic options? Was it Glasnost and Perestroika, Windows to the World, or Apparatus and Democratia? Apparatus and Democratia. That's a very tough one to say. Number 11, in which area is Ronald Reagan's legacy usually considered strongest? Introducing regulations to protect the environment, reducing the deficit, or confronting the Cold War? Number 12, who was president during the fall of the Berlin Wall and the end of the Soviet Union? Was it Jimmy Carter, Ronald Reagan, or George Herbert Walker Bush, the first George Bush? Number 13, what decision did President George Herbert Walker Bush make about the Gulf War in Iraq? Was it to avoid long-term involvement in Iraq, to continue bombing until there was a full surrender, or to convince Saudi Arabia to attack Iraq's southern border? Number 14, what was one impact of reducing the size and cost of computers by using silicon chips to store data? They became widely accessible to the public, software and operating systems became much more complicated, or they were easily operated by everyone. Number 15, what development opened the internet to popular usage? Was it Google, the World Wide Web, or Yahoo? Number 16, what contribution did Bill Gates, Paul Allen, Steve Wozniak, and Steve Jobs make to computer usage? They created and marketed the first computer games. Their marketing strategies rapidly led to lower costs of computers and peripherals, or their operating systems and software made personal computers possible. Number 17 has a map. It says which number identifies a country where the United States has fought an extended war, first in the early 1990s and then again after the 9/11 attacks. Is it number 4, pictured here, number 3, pictured right here, or number 2, pictured here? Which was not part of the September 11th, 2001 attacks on the United States? Terrorists flew an airplane into the Pentagon in Washington, D.C. An airplane hijacked by terrorists crashed in a Pennsylvania field, or terrorists blew up 2 bridges in San Francisco and New York. Number 19, which group and leader wanted to drive Americans out of all Islamic nations, destroy Israel, and eliminate pro-Western governments in the Middle East? Was that the Taliban and the Mullah Muhammad Omar, Al-Qaeda and the Osama bin Laden, or Al-Qaeda the group and Osama bin Laden, or was it Hamas and Sheikh Ahmad Yassin? Number 20, what was one part of the U.S. response to terrorist attacks? Was it support of one terrorist group in exchange for their willingness to attack another, an attempt to gain United Nations intervention, or military action in Afghanistan? Number 21, what legislation was intended to heighten security and protect citizens against terrorists, but also raised issues concerning civil rights? Homeland Security legislation, the Anti-Terrorism Bill, or the Patriot Act? Number 22, what reason given by President George W. Bush, the second George Bush, for invading Iraq later proved to actually be false? He said the United States needed to acquire the oil reserves held in Iraq. He warned that Saddam Hussein had weapons of mass destruction, and he claimed that Osama bin Laden was hiding in Iraq. Number 23, what was one reason many people opposed the war in Iraq? They believed the terrorists would be antagonized and bring further attacks on the United States. They thought the United States should address the issue of global warming first. Or the last option, they said the United States should not start a war without direct provocation. For number 24, it says President George W. Bush announced these words above shortly after which event? And I'll read his statement. American and coalition forces have begun a concerted campaign against the regime of Saddam Hussein. In this war, our coalition is broad, more than 40 countries from across the globe. Our cause is just, the security of the nations we serve and the peace of the world. And our mission is clear, to disarm Iraq of weapons of mass destruction, to end Saddam Hussein's support for terrorism, and to free the Iraqi people. George W. Bush. So again, the question is, President George W. Bush announced these words above shortly after which event? The U.S. defeat of the Taliban, the September 11, 2001 attacks, or the attacks on the American embassies in Africa? Numbers 25 and 26 are your short answer questions, which you should have received from your U.S. history instructor in live session reviews, and you should also have an answer already prepared for these questions that you can simply copy and paste into these fields right here. Okay, if you do not, you will need to type and write your answer once you enter into the course, but that is not what we recommend. So our first question is here, and we list the big idea for Unit 6 first. It says, historians look at the past not just to see what happened, but also to determine why it happened and what resulted. With the more recent events in this unit, Unit 6, keep in mind that historians will continue to study and debate these events for decades before they can draw conclusions. Be sure to give page references for all information. You should only be using your textbook and course slides to answer these questions. All responses should be in complete sentences in your own wording. Use Unit 6 online course lessons 6.01 to 6.05, pages 892 to 921, chapters 39, and summary slides from our Unit 2-6 summary lessons, which were done on May 19th and May 20th. Technological developments have had both positive and negative effects on the United States economy and American society. Explain how at least one of the following recent computer advancements has impacted the U.S. economy and society. So the personal computer, World Wide Web, or the cell phone. How have one of those things impacted the U.S. economy and society? Don't forget, you're looking for both to explain both. Number 26 is the character trait question, and we revisited grit as we end our course content for the year before our final exam. This question says, grit is the capacity to keep going in spite of the odds and difficulties. In 3 complete and well-written sentences, reflect on at least one challenge you have overcome in this school year. When you're done with your test, click Save Answers and then click Submit for grading. If you don't do that, it may not send correctly to your instructor, so be sure to do that as you go. Remember to write down your answers on paper just in case your work is lost due to lack of internet, a disturbance in internet or power. All right, good luck on your test.